This is the final week of the God and Technology series, and we have been looking at kind of different ways that technology is used and how we can use technology. And we have been looking at the power and the peril of technology. And today we're going to talk about, a few years ago, there was, not more than a few years ago, more than a few years ago, there was a movement, there were bracelets, I don't know if you remember it, the What Would Jesus Do movement. It still exists, you can still see it every once in a while. So, what would Jesus do if he had a smartphone? Was the question that I asked myself kind of all of this week. So, I'm going to start with a story that is completely unrelated, but hopefully I can bring it back around at the end. You can tell me later whether I've succeeded or not. So, and plus I have to mention Mother's Day today. So this is my mention of Mother's Day. So I have stated multiple times, it has been 23 years since I've had to know what to do on Mother's Day weekend. And my wife and I had a conversation. And so we went on an adventure this weekend. And it took us all over the lower half of Michigan. We went to cemeteries to clean headstones and to put flowers out. Kind of an odd thing for Mother's Day, but we went to visit her mother. And so that is how we celebrated. So we were cleaning, so I had to wear clothes that weren't too good. And I have a Michigan State shirt. And on the back of it, it says, "Friends don't let friends like Michigan." It's green and white, has a big block S on it. Now, the second place that we ended up was relatively close to Ann Arbor. We were in Howell, Michigan, and we stopped to eat dinner on the way home. And I'll leave the story right there, and maybe I'll come back to it if I remember. Here we go. So, there is the rest of the story. So, when we're looking at technology, I decided to look up, perfect timing, whoever is calling, I appreciate them. Technology is with us. It is said that 90 to 95% of people have smartphones. And so I thought, well, when did this all happen? How did this all happen? So I looked up mobile phones or car phones. Did you know in 1946 you could purchase a car phone? 1946 was the first available wireless car phone. It ran on a radio signal. There were limited areas you could have it in. You had to have a trunk. There was 80 pounds of equipment that you had to keep in the trunk of your car, and it was wired to the phone in the car. You could make phone calls from 1946 from your car on. So I decided, well, let's do the adventure, right? So in 1983, the first mobile phone was sold. The first handheld, totally self-contained mobile phone was sold in 1983. It was $39.95 and it weighed 4.5 pounds. I'm not talking $39.95. I'm talking $3,995. The battery life was 30 minutes. You had 30 minutes of talk time with this phone called the Brick. It was nicknamed the Brick. And after you used that 30 minutes of talk time, it took 10 hours to charge the battery. Mobile phones have come a little ways since then. In 1992, remember the old flip phones? You remember those, don't you? In 1992, you were able to text on your flip phone for the very first time. Originally, texts were limited to 160 characters. There are some of you in this church, not going to mention any names or stop at any person, but you go way past 160 characters in your texts. In 2002, a brand new device came out. It was called the BlackBerry. How many of you remember that? The BlackBerry had a keyboard on it. Some people called them crackberries because people got addicted to them. And it was the first time you were able to get online and truly have an internet interface. And then it happened. In 2007, the world as we know it changed with the introduction of the very first iPhone. Smartphones were born. One of their commercials was a commercial that showed people how to use the phone. So there were people buying the phones, iPhones, and they didn't know how to use them. So Apple put out a commercial that showed people how to text, how to get on the internet, how to answer a phone call, how to hang up from a phone call. Showed them where their music was and taught them about apps. And it has been a foot race since then. So I understand some of us are Apple and some of us are Android, and the camps are pretty distinct, but smartphones are here. And so the question that I asked myself this week was, what would it look like if Jesus would have had a smartphone? Think of all of the things that would have been at the fingertips of the disciples and of Jesus Christ had they had iPhones and internet and text and instant messaging and FaceTime. All of those things that are available, tools that we use on a daily basis. I remember a time in my life when my mother wanted me to come home, she opened the back door and yelled my name. If I want my children to come home now, I just text them, "Time for you to come home." And I press send. In fact, all the children living in my house, which is only one now, I know where he's at all the time if he's got his phone, and chances are he has his phone. It even tells me how fast he's going, and it tells me what road he's on. I don't know how I would have survived as a teenager had my parents had that information. I certainly wouldn't have been driving as much as I did. Technology is something that we take for granted now. A whole generation of people that have no idea what it was like to not have constant contact with another human being. Children are getting younger and younger as they get their phones. And we are more connected with one another than we have ever been. But in the midst of that, if you pay attention and you look, and I am as guilty as anybody, I want to say that to you, but if you look, you will see, if you look at a group of people who are together, most of them look like this. They're not looking at each other. They're not having conversation with each other. They are nose in the phone. I take notes on my phone. So when I'm in a meeting, sometimes I will take out my phone, and if it's an important note, I will put it in to my phone with a reminder that bings later on, lets me know what's going on, using technology to its best advantage. But I know sometimes people in meetings probably look at me and go, what is he doing on his phone? And that's usually what I'm doing. Not always. I'll admit there's times when I'm looking stuff up, trying to answer a question. There are other times I'm just looking to see who just texted me. Right? When you're having a meeting with somebody and their phone goes off, it's usually just easier to say, go ahead and check your phone. It's all right. Give them that second where they can just check their phone, because some of us live in that stress of not knowing what it is that's just occurred, or we're waiting for a message or a phone call, and we want to check and see if that's what it is that we're waiting for. So we spend this time with our nose buried in the phone. Oh, I could hear the discussions if that technology was available for Jesus and the disciples. Peter, put down your phone. Well, I'll be just a minute. That's my favorite. Put down your phone. I'm just a minute. One more minute. 30 seconds more. I promise. Right? But I think Jesus would have laid aside technology from time to time, because we see that there were moments when he separated himself from everybody else. He went away and he prayed about things, sought counsel with God so that he could focus one-on-one with his heavenly Father to seek counsel for what was occurring. Jesus was also really good at seeing people. That was one of the scriptures, the scripture that I chose today. I chose it because Jesus saw them on the shore. He saw the brothers on the shore. We see it in other places as well. We see it when Jesus is eating a meal with Pharisees, and he sees the woman who is anointing his feet. We see it when Jesus sees the crowd and takes pity on them and feeds them. We see it when Jesus looks and sees Peter's mother-in-law and that she is sick and heals her. We see all of these times throughout Scripture when Jesus sees other people. So I was sitting there in that restaurant, and we had worked that day, so I probably didn't smell too good. I was dirty, but the back of my shirt had that message on it. Friends don't let friends like Michigan. And all of a sudden, there was a tap on my shoulder. And I turned, and there was a man who was probably, I'm going to be conservative and call him mid-70s, but it was probably more likely mid-80s. And he was smiling from ear to ear, and he said, "It's good to see somebody else who likes green and white," in his Spartan polo shirt. And so we had a moment right there. I was seen by somebody. He didn't have his nose in a phone. He saw me for who I was. And in that instant, knowing where I was at, so close to Ann Arbor, it felt good to know that I wasn't alone. How many times do we find ourselves stuck in our phone instead of seeing who people are? When I got up to leave, I went over and I told him to stay strong, Sparty, is what I said to him. And he gave me the old go green, and I gave him go white. And we went on our way. We had seen one another, and we had connected as people. Had he been in his phone, he would have never saw me for who I was. It would have just been another person in a restaurant. But we connected. Jesus connected with people. He saw them for who they were. When they were poor, he knew that they were poor. When they were hungry, he knew that they were hungry. When they were sick and wanted to be healed, he saw them. He sees us. We have been talking about technology, and technology is wonderful, but we need to make sure that we set aside some time. Jesus set aside some time when he freed himself from the busyness of the world around him. And I would say the busyness of the world around us usually comes through our phones. Whether it be a call or a message, whether it be looking at apps, Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, Snapchat, instant messaging, whatever it is that you find yourself looking at, to take a break. It happens every once in a while. I will leave my phone, sometimes on purpose, sometimes on accident. I was out in the garden yesterday, and I didn't look at my phone once. I don't know if anybody texted me. If they did, I caught up with them later. I don't know if anybody called me. If they did, I caught up with them later. I just spent a few hours outside in the garden getting my hands dirty and spending time with my wife and spending time just seeing who she was and her seeing who I was. We need to make sure that we do that and to follow Jesus' example of seeing people. It's funny. The technology, and especially Facebook, and I know if you use technology, the majority of people here would probably use Facebook. You're of a generation. It's funny. I saw a TV show, and one of the little boys on the TV show said, "Oh yeah, I looked it up on Facebook. You know, it's a really old website," he said. And it made me feel really old, because it is the one that I look at the most to connect with family and friends and things that I like. But when you make a request to know somebody on Facebook, we call it friending, right? And what does Jesus say? I want to be your friend. This is how you know what love is. You'll lay down your life for a friend. So technology is keeping up with Jesus just fine. Jesus has sent you a friend request this very day. I hope if you have gotten nothing from this sermon series, I hope you will get this. Jesus keeps up with technology. Of that, I have no doubt. And he still sends out friend requests to everyone because he wants to be everyone's friend. And the way he does that isn't by individually going around with a smartphone and a Facebook account and making friend requests, he does that through you and through me. You are the person who is making Jesus' friend requests. You and I have the responsibility for seeing people just like Jesus saw people. That man in the restaurant saw me for who I was, and he knew who I was, and he connected with me. Our job is to connect with people. And yes, technology can help us connect with people, but sometimes we have to put that phone down, and we have to connect with people. Callaway today. I don't know. This might be a bad thing. There have been children in the past who have been very talkative up here, and he has the potential to be that. But it's exciting to see him blossom as a human being, to see his personality begin to show through. And he really likes cookies, because he didn't want to give that last one away. But it's great to connect with each and every person in a real and personal way. And I can't wait to see how he changes and grows, and how he changes me to become better at who I am. And I hope I have that sort of relationship with everybody here, and even with people who are listening online. We're trying to figure out how to connect with you, because we don't want to just be your friend on Facebook. We want to be the type of friend that Jesus has called us to be, and to be connected with one another in a real way, to love one another, to care for one another, to support one another. So when we talk about God and technology, I really need you to be aware that, yes, there are perils, but there is great triumph to be had in using that technology correctly and setting that technology aside at times so that we can connect in a real way. So when you find yourself at a table full of people and you have a desire to pull out your phone and put your nose in it, keep it in your pocket and connect with the person across the table with you. When you find yourself in a place where you would normally put your nose in a phone, take an extra couple of minutes and just look at the people around you and see if you can find somebody who is poor or hungry or has a need or just needs to see a smile and a wave. Connect. Be a friend. Not just online, but in real life as well, because that's what Jesus has called us to do. Will you pray with me? Lord, we give thanks that your request to be our friend stands, and that your desire for us is to be free of sin and to know you as God. Help us to be the best friend that we can be with those around us, and help us to follow you. In Jesus' name, amen. go forth from this place and follow him. And happy Mother's Day. Amen.